Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Lourdes Del Rosso, and here with me is Dr. Raffaele Ferri. We're here together to go over the scoring rules for large muscle group movements during sleep. And Dr. Raffaele Ferri is going to start reviewing the publication that we had on the rules for scoring the International Restless Leg Syndrome Study Group Position State.
Okay, thank you, Lourdes. And I wish now I can share my screen. And I already go and share my screen if I can. Here it is. And now you see my screen. Where is it? It is here. Okay, so you can see. I will very briefly review the rules that were set by the task force that you just mentioned, just to get started. And I remember we use the acronym LMM to indicate large muscle group movements in sleep, of course. There are, first of all, technical specifications. So these are very simple. The main channels that we use to identify these large muscle group movements are those that are usually used in standardized PSG recording. And they are based essentially on channels that use electrical signals, that record electrical signals from the surface of the body. So we use, of course, both tibialis anterior muscle EMG activity, chin EMG, the three signals that are classically used to score sleep stages, that is frontal, central, or occipital, referred to one mastoid, or the alternative montage that is suggested by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine manual. Then two EOG channels and one ECG channel. As an optional signal, but if we have, it is better to use them, we can have the body position. A change in body position, of course, occurs only with a large movement. So if we detect a change in the body position, we can make quite sure that there has been a body movement. Of course, if we have other EMG channels available, we can use them, even if they are not compulsory to score our LMM. These include the flexor digitorum superficialis or flexor digitorum communis, because they are used in some labs for the diagnosis of RBD. We are thinking about rules that do not apply only to children, but also to adults. Or paraspinal muscles, when we have a montage to detect propiospinal myoclonus, as an example, or masseter electrodes when we are studying bruxism. Well, if we have those electrodes, remember that they all will be able to pick up activity that can be considered and interpreted as a body movement when the criteria that I'm going to explain now are met. It is important to note this, that especially for research purposes, if we use a set of signals that includes also optional signals, because these ones we must have always, it is important that these optional signals are kept constant during the whole research study, because of course this might be considered as a confounding factor if we change the set of channels that we are using. In the next list of rules, we define what is a large muscle group movement. So it is essentially a temporally overlapping increase in EMG activity and or the occurrence of movement artifact in any combination of at least two recommended channels. You remember the channels that we have recommended before. So we must have at least two recommended channels. Of course, these if the movements occur only on leg channels, we might pay attention. We have to pay attention because we have to separate these large muscle group movements from the so-called periodic leg movements. And this is something that we have to pay attention because when we score periodic leg movements, they cannot be also forming a large muscle group movement. So it is an important point to take into consideration. The detection of those that we would call periodic leg movements excludes the labeling of the same movement as a large muscle group movement. Okay, so the onset, the increase in EMG activity or movement artifact signals must be at least twice the amplitude of the background signal amplitude. This is very easy to understand. The onset of the increase in EMG activity and or movement artifact starts during sleep. That means that it starts after at least 10 seconds of sleep without movement. If the movement causes awakening during the same epoch of occurrence and the epoch it is scored as wakefulness, the movement is counted and assigned to the sleep stage preceding it. We will see this. It is easy to understand if we see some examples. We will see it soon. Then the large muscle group movement onset is defined as the beginning of the first detectable increase in EMG activity and or movement artifact in any of the channels involved, and the end similarly is defined as the return of the amplitude to below twice the baseline signal amplitude for more than 1 second of the last of the channels involved. The duration, of course, is between the beginning and the end of the movement. Pay attention that different LLM not separated by more than 1 second from each other are considered to be a single LMM. When there is more than 1 second, they can be counted as two. And in this case, the second one is not preceded by 10 seconds of sleep, but the sequence of two movements is. We do not have to wait for another 10 seconds of sleep to score a new movement, of course. The minimum duration of a LMM is 3 seconds, and the maximum duration is set at 30 seconds for children and 45 seconds for adults. We have to pay attention that movement artifacts are included in this type of scoring, but not technical artifacts. So we should be careful in distinguishing between these two. And in the examples that will follow, we will probably see movement artifacts. Technical artifacts are due to the detachment of an electrode that is not attached very well, or the intrusion of some main power interference, and so on. But all people who score PSG know how to differentiate between these two types of artifacts. It makes me also this sentence here prompts me to underline one thing, that what we call artifact often is a true signal. In this case, a movement artifact for us it is a signal to be detected. It is not an artifact to be discarded, while a technical artifact is a real artifact that needs to be discarded. Okay, and again, as I was saying you that before, that the movement does not meet criteria for any other scored movement, such as periodic leg movement during sleep or other movements that you know, or not does not should not correspond to behavior characterizing parasomnias or seizures, or movement triggered by environmental stimuli. Of course, we know that when we record this PSG, the sleep technique always indicates the occurrence of these events. Oh, sorry, I went to the last one, but yeah, we have to talk about these other details. So what should we measure once we have detected the movements? Of course, your attention at the moment will be focused on that first part that we have just explained now. But because usually the computer is able to do this type of measurements, but if the computer is not able, we have to know what we have to note down. So we need to note down the time of occurrence, the duration of each movement, the sleep stage of occurrence, and remember the rule that if the movement causes a stage change or awakening during the same epoch, when it starts, assign it to the sleep stage of the preceding epoch. Why did we do this? Because if not, we would have missed many movements that occur in a 30-second epoch that is scored as wakefulness as an example, because the movement occurs at the beginning of the epoch and causes an awakening, but it occurs evidently after at least 10 seconds of sleep. So it is a good movement. It probably caused the awakening and should not be missed. So it should be counted. This does not apply to movements that occur after a sustained wakefulness, of course. When do we consider a leg LMM and an awakening associated with each other? It is when they occur simultaneously or when the awakening occurs while the movement lasts or within 0.5 seconds from its end. So they have to be very close to each other. The same applies to an arousal or a respiratory event. So what do we report? We reported the LMM index, that is the number per hour total sleep time, total, and better to report also during non-REM and REM sleep. Again, mean duration, total during REM and non-REM, the index of LMM associated with arousal awakenings, total during non-REM and REM sleep, or if you want associated with only with arousals and associated with awakenings alone, so we can put them together or separated, and the index of LMM associated with respiratory events, total and during REM and non-REM. As you can see, these are recommended until this point here. From the point 4 on, they're all optional. But they are much more detailed. The notes are very important. Notes are called notes, but sometimes they are more important than the rules. It is important to notice this, that the rules for counting LMM do not require any adaptation or changes of the sleep stage scoring rules, and sleep staging is required prior to scoring LMM. Within an epoch where movement obscures the EEG to the point that the sleep stage cannot be determined, then the epoch is scored as wakefulness. If the epoch before the epoch after it is scored as wakefulness. And this is the rule by the asthma. In the case the epoch before is assigned the stage wakefulness, the movement is not counted because it does not occur while the subject is asleep. If only the epoch after is scored as wakefulness, the movement is assigned to the sleep stage of the epoch preceding the epoch in which it starts. I will show you in 1 second a figure to explain this in a better way. Or with an example, it is better than words. Within an epoch where the movement obscures the EEG for more than 15 seconds to the point that the sleep stage cannot be determined, and neither the epoch before or after is scored as wakefulness, then the sleep stage of the epoch is scored the same as the epoch that comes after it. And this is the rule of the asthma rule. In contrast with the current rules, the movement, which can last only 3 seconds or more, is assigned to the sleep stage of the epoch preceding the epoch in which it starts. So while the epoch is scored, the stage is scored according to the epoch that comes after, the movement is assigned to the stage of the epoch preceding it. Again, we see some example, and now we go to the example, to the schematic example. You see here what we have. We have 3 epochs scored, N2, N1, and N1. You see that there is a big movement starting here. It starts here because the first occurrence of the movement is this point, and is followed by the movement in other channels, as you can see. And this is following the asthma criteria scored as N1, okay? And we score this LMM here, no problem whatsoever. This example is almost the same. This occurs in the second part of the epoch, but it is always scored N1, okay? But look at this. In this case, the leg movement, the LMM starts in the second part of an epoch that is scored as N2 because the first part of the epoch contains a K complex, so it is continuing N2. The movement causes some change in scoring, so you see N1 here, and because the slow eye movement occurs here. So the movement is scored and assigned to N2. But we go now to the example that I was referring to before. We have a LMM, starting in this epoch. This epoch is obscured by the movements. Being obscured, it is and as a slow eye movement occurs in the first part of the epoch following the asthma manual is assigned to the stage wakefulness. No? Then the movement, in this case, is counted because it is preceded by sleep until it occurs. The stage, the epoch is scored as wakefulness, but the movement is counted and assigned to the stage preceding it. So we will say that this movement occurred in N2. If we add this movement and we add alpha waves here so that this epoch had been scored wakefulness, this movement would not be counted because it occurs during wakefulness. I hope that this was clear enough. I'm sure it was not very, very clear, but the things will get clearer with the examples that we will see on a real recording that now will be shown to us by Dr. Del Rosso. Thank you. So,
Thank you. So now to put in practice the review of the scoring, let's go over a sleep study. And
we will both comment on these points
yeah,
that we are going to do.
so this is a pediatric sleep study using our own system at children. So let me see. Oops. And we'll scroll, and right now we are in 30 seconds. Most of our text score in 60, 90, 2-minute second. So we'll go over how usually it's scored, but then we'll stop when we see a potential large muscle movement.
As I was saying before, you can score as usual, but when you detect a movement, in order to have a better definition of the starting and ending point of the movement, I would suggest you to change the duration of the epoch that you visualize on screen to 30 seconds, because you are making a smaller error when you mark the start and the end. Now, how many seconds do we have now here?
This is 60 seconds.
Okay, can you put on the 30 seconds, please? Because I will show you the difference. Okay, now you can detect much better the starting point and the ending point. So, as we said before, the starting point, first of all, we see that here we have everything. We have EMG activity on chin, on the two legs, and movement artifacts on the EEG that are those big waves. And you can have also some help from the respiratory channels where you see some movement disturbance on the respiratory channel. Anyway, so we have more than 2 channels involved, and now we have to mark the beginning. And the beginning is where the first channel, where you see the activity beginning.
So the first channel would be the chin.
Yeah. And also the channel in which it ends, it is the last to end. I think in this case is still the chin. So you can mark it on the chin channel.
So here we have a 9.4 second movement.
Perfect. So this of course is a movement because it is more than 3 seconds. Okay.
Let's comment on this elevation.
Yeah, here, as you can see here, you you see only activity on the chin EMG. It's a single channel. There is no movement artifact on the EEG. These are just slow waves that are normal during this slow wave sleep. And this does not qualify to be considered an LMM. So we just go on.
So here we have another one.
Here we have another one that is very similar to the one that we have already just scored before. So I would mark this.
Let me see if oops. I wanted to not have any event so I can move it. Oh, I just wanted to move this to the middle. There we go. So it is very similar to the previous one. And then we can score as a large muscle movement, starting with the first elevation, which would be around here, to the last elevation. Now, for example, in this case, yeah, do you agree?
Yes, I agree. And I want to point the attention, to focus the attention on the presence of a large movement artifact or one of the EOG channels in this case. That is a movement artifact. It is not a technical artifact. It's very large. It goes for the whole page, up and down. And it is something that has a meaning. It reinforces the idea that there has been a large movement there. Okay.
And then for some of the scorers that go at 2 minutes.
Yeah, you can use this to go faster to the next one, but
Right.
then it is better to visualize with a shorter time on the whole screen.
So the next one would be this one, and this is a good example that what we were talking about, the 1 second.
Yeah.
So let's put this one in the middle. And this is
Yeah.
a good example of what we were talking about, if there's 1 second in between.
No, but if you see this movement with this time scale, it is very hard for you to say if there is a separation of 1 second or not. But if you put in 30 seconds, you see that there is indeed a separation, because as you can see, in between those two movements, there is a return to the baseline, and that is a return below the double the baseline for more than 1 second.
So here is, yeah, barely 1 second.
No, but you have to go. Remember the rule. If you go and sleep 10 seconds before the movement.
So this is 30 seconds.
Yeah. But if you go and see the amplitude of the MG before the start of the movement on the left.
Oh, because it goes back to baseline, right?
So, yes, but it has to go, it goes below the double of that, much before than your mark. You know, there. We are, of course, in a very borderline situation, but I would have scored as 2 separate movements.
So then you would score, I was just using this to measure the time. This one ends here where it goes back to the baseline, and this one starts here.
Yeah, exactly.
Around there.
Yes, I would have scored in this way. Okay, let's go and see if there are other different types or with an awakening.
Go back to the 2 minutes and just go through the study.
Because you go faster this way.
Yeah. And then we have another one here.
Yeah, we have another one.
I'm gonna put it in the center. This is more of the very classic large muscle movement that I see, very, very typical of what I see in children, where there's absolutely nothing before in terms of anything suspicious. So we'll go in this one. Would you say it's okay to go to 30 seconds?
Yeah, because you can see where it starts, where it stops very well.
And then, yeah, exactly, very clear.
And you see that you had not go to the, okay. And you can see clearly also the fact that also the EG channel speaks some movement artifact, because these are those initial big waves. Okay. Okay. And
so I want you to comment. When you see this study, which was just picked as a teaching studies, you see that the tech has scored, let's delete our scoring of the leg movement, but the tech usually scores these studies as arousals, right?
Yeah.
So I think here, so this was the previous study was as an arousal. So can you make a comment about now this large muscle groups movement that were previously only scored as arousals, but the movements were not really identified? This would be one of those that would be scored as a movement associated with an arousal?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
But not all movements are associated with arousal, especially in children. So it is not the same as scoring arousal.
Right.
Okay. You can have arousals without a movement.
So in this
So,
particular case, it's okay to do, you would put the arousal and then you put
yes,
also the movement. And
yes, because they
and
overlap, no?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we would continue the movement here. And it will depend on the PSG reporting system to associate the large muscle movement with the arousal.
Well, depends on the good programs allow you to define your associations.
Right.
So they would. You see, here, please put this on 30 seconds. I will show you one thing here. Okay. So you see here, it has been indicated as an arousal. No? It's a little bit, if you think about the definition of the arousal is not based, especially during non-REM sleep, on the presence of a movement on the chin. It's based on the content of the EEG with a shift in frequency. And as you can see, there is a shift in frequency. I don't know if it is 3 seconds because it is very difficult to understand. In fact, the scoring of arousal is the most variable between different people and scorers. It's very, very variable. Anyway, this is an arousal without a LMM. This is an arousal with an increase in the chin tone, but certainly not a large muscle group movement.
Perfect. So let's go back to our 2 minutes. And here we have another one.
Little doubt that here we are in the presence of a large movement. Can you put 30 seconds, please? Okay, as you can see, maybe it depends on the filtering that you are using on the signal, but I would have thought that this movement would have shown some EMG potential also on the EEG signal. Maybe you are filtering a lot.
Okay.
I don't know which filters you are using for the EEG.
So the filters are here, the low filter and the high filter. But this,
on the EEG.
So let me score this first, right?
Yeah.
And then this. Yeah, that's the filter for the EEG. Do you want to see for the EMG?
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's not too
That's
bad.
for the EMG 10 and 70.
Yes, of course. If can you put the EEG to 70 Hertz too?
The EEG?
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, and you see more muscle activity now on the EEG too, because you had filtering it out. Okay. Okay. Curiosity.
Oh, this is a good because I wanted to go over movement with an event, in this case, a hypopnea, right?
No, but there is also another thing here. Can you put 30 seconds?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me, what is the sleep stage assigned to this?
So this is a transition between N3 and N2. Let me see here. So you
No, I
have,
want to know where the
oh,
epoch
this
starts.
epoch was scored wake, and then it's followed
Okay.
by, and yeah.
Okay.
But previous
So,
to this, I think it
so
was
this is
N.
an example. You see that this epoch is scored as wake, as sleep in the first 10 seconds at least, but which was sleep even in the epoch before. So this movement is preceded by more than 10 seconds of sleep, a lot more, no?
Right.
It occurs during sleep, but that epoch has been scored as wakeful. So this movement is counted, but is assigned to the epoch, to the N3 stage. That is the epoch that precedes this epoch that has been scored. So this movement, is a long movement. I would say it approaches the maximum of 30 seconds.
Let's
It
take
is
a look.
not, it is about 27 seconds in my eyes.
Oops, let me see. Maybe I.
Yeah,
So we have, yeah, 27.8 seconds.
you see, I've got a good eye.
Good eye.
So it approaches the maximum that we have set. This could have gone, no, it is that one because I'm looking at the EEG, it is just alpha waves, it's not movement in the EEG. So these are the limits of this movement. And it is a good example how to score a movement that occurs in the first epoch of wakefulness after sleep, but is assigned to the sleep stage preceding the epoch. I think this is clear.
Can you comment on the movements that are associated with respiratory events? In our lab, we're going to be counting all the movements associated with respiratory events and non-associated to diagnosis of RSD, but also to see how much disturbance other sleep disorders can cause.
Yeah, you know, the problem, the big problem is with the rules for PLMS that,
Within 0.5 seconds.
yeah, but there is discrepancy between the different rules, different ways to look at that. The problem, in my view, is that there is an initial scene. How do you call an original scene? That is the idea that movements that occur with respiratory events are caused by the respiratory event. This is not demonstrated at all. The idea, my personal idea, but supported by data also, is that they tend to synchronize because they are embedded in the same oscillatory pattern, but they can occur by themselves. So my idea is to count them always to indicate the association, the same as you do with the arousal. I don't understand why leg movements with arousal are counted and considered in the PLMS index, while leg movements associated with the respiratory event should not. In my view, if they meet the criteria for periodicity, that means at least 4 areas with a determined interval, if they meet the criteria, they should be counted and noted as associated or not, the same as arousal. And I will do the same for this movement.
Your voice, we cannot lose you a little bit in and out.
No,
So
I
just,
have
yeah,
to
just be
get to
careful.
this one.
Okay, so maybe we can continue a little bit more, see what kind. I think we have seen good examples of movements associated with respiratory. Oh, here we passed one. This one, we're back here. So This is a good example because we, in this case, and let's put it in 30 seconds.
Okay, the first one is not LMM because we have already
An arousal.
explained. This is an arousal. There is a chin tone increase, but not a large muscle group movement.
So an
It is
example,
just
just like what we said.
there is no movement artifacts in the EEG. There is only a change in frequency of the EEG. Here, on the contrary, there is even the ECG that shows that there has been a movement. So there is a movement artifact on the EEG. There is even some muscle potential on the EEG. And so I see, in this case, you see, the legs have not participated, but the chin, the EEG, has picked up some movement. Maybe this subject has moved the head or the upper arms, the upper limbs, and has made a change. You see, there is an artifact, movement artifact on the eye channels too, and an artifact, a movement artifact on the ECG too, but not the legs. In this case, the subject did not move the legs. But notwithstanding that, we can say that there was a large muscle group movement.
And I think
the next one, okay. I think it is the same.
so. Let's put this one in the middle.
I would have not scored N2 this epoch, but N1 because there is a clear big arousal at the beginning of the epoch.
And then there is no marker or N of N2 here.
Yeah.
Oops.
While
So I
the
changed it.
the epoch before was different. Here you see there is you know, this epoch here, N2, and now it is N1, would, in my opinion, meet the criteria for wakefulness if this alpha rhythm that I see clearly lasts for more than 15 seconds.
So let's see how much.
But I don't know. I think it is not 15 seconds.
So we'll go, the large muscle movement is 13 seconds.
Yes, so it is correct. N1 is correct.
Okay.
Because the alpha is not 15 seconds. Yes. Okay.
And then this, because the prior epoch was N2, and even though, so this epoch, you are assigning it, again, to clarify the assign.
No, it is assigned to N1.
Okay.
Because
only the epochs that are awake.
It is only epochs that is the first wake epoch after sleep. Has that need.
Perfect.
This is sleep, so.
I think I see something that I wanted to, just in case, to.
Yeah.
This is going to be too brief and it's going to fit criteria for a isolated leg movement, probably.
No, there's no leg, it's just the chin.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's the chin. Yeah, you're right. So this is just not.
If it was longer, with the involvement of the chin and the EEG, it would be good, but it is not.
It's 1.5, so it doesn't fit criteria.
Exactly. Here you see some artifact on the EEG alone, so, and it is even a couple of seconds, so no, it does not qualify for anything. Even if it was the EEG alone, but involving more than one channel, and it was like this one, please enlarge it, 30 seconds. Let's see, what are these potentials? Can you amplify a little bit less? Okay, nothing. These are just, it is just burst of high voltage potentials, EEG potentials. It is not a movement artifact. It is not an EMG artifact picked by the EEG electrode. So nothing. This is not a movement.
Let me move to REM sleep to see if we see something like I just jumped to a REM sleep
Yes.
epoch. So then we can do a couple of scoring to REM, and then maybe that will be it for this first session. And here's our
Yes,
first
yes.
one.
Yeah. No doubt about this movement.
So very important to know that we have seen the large muscle groups in REM. And I just want to clarify that the whole muscle group, maybe I will let you clarify, Dr. Ferri, because some of the questions are going to be, which I had when we wrote the first paper, is this going to be REM without atonia just because we see these movements?
Yes. It is the problem of REM without atonia is to define how much REM is allowed, because there are arousal during REM sleep. By definition, they must have an increase in muscle tone. If not, they are not arousal. There must be a movement. So by definition, we do have arousals and we do have activity during REM. The problem is that the ASM manual does not tell you how many is too many.
And the manual specifies that PLMs, for example, are not included when we include REM without atonia.
PLM.
Yeah.
During REM, usually movements are not periodic.
Right, right.
So these are movements, not PLMs. So it is not clear. It is not clear, at least to say so. In my view, they're wrong rules. Anyway, this is certainly, it belongs to the REM without atonia field, because especially if you have a behavioral episode during RBD, this is what it looks like often. So it has to be considered. Okay. But if it is only some episode during the whole REM sleep like this does not qualify for an abnormal REM sleep without atonia.
And we've reviewed studies, older studies in normal adult and individuals, and movements occurred in REM. And as you say, it's the characterization of the movement, the duration, and the type of movement. But this repositioning do occur in REM in normal individuals as well.
Can you go back to that? Can you go back? Sorry. Okay, stop here. You have indicated here, probably correctly, the starting point and the ending point. But if you look at the chin tone, it remains high for a much longer period. Okay, and that is REM without atonia. No.
Not really, right?
No. Put please the 60 seconds back.
Oh, okay, the chin. Look, oh, I see what you're saying. The chin does remain high.
It does not return to the baseline.
Oh, I see.
That is REM sleep without atonia. Okay. I would score the movement in this way because, in fact, after that, I doubt it is the double of the beginning. But you see, before it gets really down to the pre-movement, it is much, much longer. Okay.
I have to refresh my REM scoring rules. And this may not be the right time to confuse everybody with this, but do you think it's possible that when you have this movement bumped the stage from REM to N1 because there are no rapid eye movements?
No, here. you need if I remember correctly, you need the occurrence of some eye movement.
No, but there is no eye movements here.
Yes, some slow eye movement to change the scoring
Oh,
of
I
REM.
see. I see. You're correct. Yeah.
Okay. Or the occurrence of clear N2 potentials, which, yes, go on, go epoch by epoch now. Go on. Because this is REM, in my opinion. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes. It remained a REM. Now it's changing, you see. It's slowing. I change. It remained atonic, but something was changing.
So maybe it took a little longer for that chin to go back down after that movement.
No.
That's what it was, this part up to here.
Yes.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. Here we have a brief central apnea, no movement. And then
One
we're,
more example, and then I think for today, I
yeah,
think things are quite clear.
I think we've covered a lot. I think we could stop actually, because now we're changing to N2 and we've already done some scoring in N2.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, thank you so
Okay.
much, Dr. Ferri. I hope
I
this is
hope
helpful
this,
for our text.
exactly. I hope it will be helpful.
I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay. Bye-bye.